So I created a little something for somebody who gives me 100 bits on Twitch, and it looks something like this. It's just simply me, turned into Mario, sort of. This was actually not as easy to put together as I thought it would be, and it still needs some cleanup work right now, but I really wanted to show you how I actually went about doing this. So the first thing I did was I grabbed some gameplay of Mario and I turned it into a video. Then I had to take that video and I had to drop it into some video editing, and I had to add in, right here, I had to add in a middle line to know where Mario is actually going to stop, because as you go, you can see the world will go, but Mario won't go any further. This was actually kind of important to judge where I was supposed to put my camera at any given point. The next thing I had to do was put a counter up top. It gets very, very easy to get lost in like what frame, what time you're in. So kind of having that counter there was very helpful. The next step was to go through very slowly, frame by frame, and record every single action that needed to happen. And I had to write the time, the frame, the conversion into just nothing but frames, and then I had to put everything in milliseconds. And the reason I had to put everything in milliseconds is because when you go to program this stuff in OBS, it doesn't do it by frame, it does it by milliseconds. The video editor does everything in seconds plus frames. And then I had to plug in how to do the math to make sure I knew how long I needed to do each action. So it required me to go frame by frame, knowing where I needed to do a jump, where the stop was for the height on that, and where I landed. And as I went through, it wound up having to be 95 camera changes. Using the third-party plugin MoveSource, I was able to make this happen. I also used source copy, so that way I could make sure that my regular camera wasn't affected. This way it was only moving the camera that's a copy of what my actual camera is. So in here, I had to basically do each individual move. I would make sure that I would label it my Mario camera, knowing which thing I needed to move, and then setting all these durations. So 10 milliseconds was just a quick move. The hold, this end delay was the hold time that I did, and then I made sure I positioned it where it needed to be. Then to make sure I was chaining everything together easily, I would make sure the next move was to the next one in the sequence. And then what would happen is we would have the camera moving through this sequence as I would need it to in time with Mario. When it comes to adding it into something like StreamerBot, of course I had to make an action, but basically I had to hide my camera and then my little glow effect I have behind it. I had to make the Mario game visible. Then I had to make my duplicate camera visible. And then I had to start the chain that kicks off the entire process of moving my camera around. This delay, I actually calculated out the delay it would take for me to have to turn off the camera. Basically the point where Mario goes into the castle, which is right here. Then I had to do a little bit of a delay just to let the do kind of go through. And then I made my normal cameras visible, and then I made the gameplay disappear and ready for reset. To make this kind of a thing work, you need something to trigger it, and StreamerBot was my answer to it. I love using StreamerBot, but you can use things like Lumia Stream, or I'm sure Mix It Up you can work with. Even Touch Portal has ways of doing that, or Sammy. You can do it with any of these. You just have to know how to work those programs to initiate the actual actions. So then I built that in, and the kicker of this was the fact that I actually had to do adjustments. Frames to milliseconds doesn't always align perfectly. With these milliseconds here, you'll see that a lot of them come down to like a third, two-thirds of a second. So I would adjust the milliseconds down to at least try to accommodate the moves. Now, this still isn't exactly perfect because there's still things I have to work on, such as one of the things I need to figure out is, how does the easing need to happen? Does it need to ease? I'll be honest, some of the easing does not work well. Now, it's currently not perfect. I'm kind of lagging in different places, and one of the ways I'm going to clean it up is take the video of it actually working in real time during a stream and analyzing where the problems kind of come from. So I'll go back into my video editor. I'll be looking at all this, but this time it would have my video on here, and I will just slowly move through and see where I need to adjust all my timing. Making something like this isn't always going to be perfect. You're trying to match up things that really don't like to match up, mainly the milliseconds to frames part. I mean, this is just the general breakdown of how it was done. The thing I love about doing this kind of stuff is because it helps me stand out a little bit more. It's something people don't see everywhere else. And I encourage you to actually spend time figuring these kinds of things out. discover what is possible. On my next video on how I actually make some of this stuff, I'm going to go over how I made the sub printer, and it is inspired by Nutty and Rexboards and that sub printer idea. I wanted to duplicate it. I wanted to figure out if I could do it without having to code. And guess what? I did. I'll show you how I set it up in StreamerBot. It's gonna be amazing. You're gonna love it. All right, that's it for me. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.